Sometimes we got to dig deep and find our passion, find what works for us. Sometimes it's not all about winning, but certainly it's about that experience. For us, it's all about winning that experience.
Said I'm an experiential learner. I've learned a lot through all the mistakes that I've made. And I value my mistakes. I value them. They're so important, because I think the most important thing in life is to admit. First of all, just admit if you can't do it alone. Like, no man's an island. And then just be willing, to actually put in the effort and make the change, the changes that you need to make that make it easier to live with yourself. So kind of cultivating that mindset as well on a daily basis is really important. It's a question of, you have accumulated over time all this condensed energy of emotion into your body, and how you are responding to the world is through a space of this feeling of yourself. My life. In 2002, I was diagnosed with a chronic neurological condition, and I was given 10 years to live. Basically, I had a number of lesions in my brain, and I was told that this was a chronic condition and that I would have to go on high-tech medication. So I started a path of I had super fatigue. I was burnt out. I had low performance levels. I couldn't actually be successful at living life, or fulfill my everyday duties as a mom, or even just.
We have a tendency to kind of carry baggage with us, and when we meet other people, we have a tendency to offload that baggage sometimes, and the wrong people can receive it. And so I'm loving this. This is super.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is actually, everyday wisdom. It's like you have to protect your energy. You have to look at what you're spending your time on, and your energy on, and where you're placing and putting your energy. And that involves I mean, from my experience, the most difficult things that you'll experience in this life is relationships that are not positive or life-giving or life-fulfilling. The other thing is forbearance against the control of life, so there can be things outside of your control that happen, and you have to respond. And every person that triggers you, it's a question of, you have accumulated over time all this condensed energy of emotion into your body, and how you are responding to the world is through a space of this feeling of yourself. I've learned a lot through all the mistakes that I've made. And I value my mistakes. I value them. They're so important, because I think the most important thing in life is to admit. First of all, just admit if you can't do it alone. Like, no man's an island. And then just be willing, to actually put in the effort and make the change, the changes that you need to make that make it easier to live with yourself. So kind of cultivating that mindset as well on a daily basis is really important. And then what Seiki does is, Seiki is just contact that's very present and pure with the body, that allows the body to come into a very, very deep state of its own relaxation, and that the breath will actually move the body deeper into its own feeling, and then the body experiences spontaneous movement to release the stuckness,
Okay, and welcome to this week's Always Winning the Experience. I'm Jason Kinney, your host, and this week we're with SaraLee Cassidy. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a bio on SaraLee, an absolutely incredible lady. SaraLee Cassidy is an energy and bodywork therapist. She specialises in oriental medicine and healing. She is a Terra Rai Reiki master and a teacher of Seiki Soho, and a Seiki Soho facilitator and healer. She holds one-to-one healing sessions and workshops in Seiki Soho Japanese energy and body work. I hope I'm saying all those correctly. She began her healing journey doing a master's in counselling and psychotherapy. During one of her practical experiences, she realized that people are actually living the life they feel and think about themselves. She's discovered this during her work with women who had experienced severe domestic violence with ADAPT services. She's been practicing for over 9 years and is a healer in many modalities and fields. And she facilitates many workshops and retreats, both locally and nationally. And in addition to this, she set up the Flow Grow Experience, a communication platform that offers expert advice and life solutions across all mediums of communication, which includes a live radio show on Limerick Community Radio, which I am a fan of and a participant on many occasions. And thank you, you've had me on too. A seasonal magazine with expert advice. In addition to events, retreats that focus on growth and personal transformation. Wow! Incredible, incredible. So
I don't know where to begin.
Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely. Listen, so I suppose let's just go right back, I suppose, to how you got started and all of this and how you began your journey, really.
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose for me, right, the type of work I do is not like a career that you choose. Okay, you don't choose a career like this. You actually are it.
Yeah.
So it kind of chooses you. So you could say I'm an experiential learner. So,
Good.
so basically, in 2002, I'll just give you the kind of the synopsis of my life. In 2002, I was diagnosed with a chronic neurological condition, and I was given 10 years to live. Basically, I had like a number of lesions in my brain, and I was told that this was a chronic condition and that I would have to go on high-tech medication.
Wow.
So I started a path of like, I had super fatigue, I was burnt out, I had low performance levels, I couldn't actually be successful at living life or, you know, fulfill my everyday duties as a mom, or even just like, you know, live, you know, or enjoy life, you know. So my quality of life was pretty low. And then I kind of managed certain things. So I did go back to college, and I did kind of try in all of this, try to kind of, you know, win the experience, as you say. So I went back and I did an MA in counselling psychotherapy. Even though I had this chronic neurological condition, I was still, you know, living to the best that I could with it. So I was in ADAPT services, and I was like doing my practicum, and my supervisor said, Lee, you know, people kind of, you know, can sit with you and feel like, you know, comfortable. I never saw myself as a therapist that would go into a space and hold that idea of notion of being a therapist. It's just like when you sit in presence with somebody, they open up to a kind where they feel comfortable enough to share about themselves. Like it's just a relaxed state of yourself where you can just relax and just allow people to be themselves. So that was kind of like my awakening kind of aha moment. I don't want to work in psychotherapy. I wouldn't be good at that. I am actually really good at being present. So how can I learn this more? How can I use this more and learn this more? So in 2011, I decided then, which was probably like there were two main things, and this was probably the second thing. In 2011, I made a huge conscious decision to come off all medication. Now, I was on serious high-tech medication. I was on beta interferon, I was on antispasms for my brain, I was on all this nonsense, and it was toxic. My body was so full of toxins and toxicity, and it was just really difficult, you know, to come off all of that. So I started to go down a holistic route. I found that as I was learning different energy modalities and using energy and body work, that I started to change, you know, that I started to use energy awareness. And in the end, I came upon Seiki. And Seiki to me was like the ultimate experience, because the Japanese keep it so simple. And I know that you have an experience with martial arts and, you know, the Eastern philosophy and way. And you probably know that like space of being present with yourself, you know, and centered. So it's like, I learned this, and I learned that people are not actually manifesting what they think. It's not a question of like you thinking and it's happening. Yeah. It's a question of you have accumulated over time all this condensed energy of emotion into your body. And how you are responding to the world is through a space of this feeling of yourself. Just basically, energy awareness is really knowing how the way you think manifest. For example, right, people who worry a lot, okay, people who like, constantly thinking and worrying about everybody else and giving, but not actually looking after themselves, they would have issues with their spleen energy and their stomach. So they would find like they would have disorders with digestion because their energy is being used up on worrying. And people who would have like, restlessness and are constantly doing and, can't actually center themselves or come back into themselves, they will waste up their life force energy and they'll lose their kind of will or drive. Or people who are too much in the future are like anxious, and they'll use up their heart energy and they'll get stuff like palpitations, high blood pressure, so it's really knowing how the way we live manifests as an energy within our body. And then what Seiki does is Seiki is just like contact that's very present and pure with the body, that allows the body to come into a very, very deep state of its own relaxation, and that the breath will actually, move the body deeper into its own feeling. And then the body experiences spontaneous movement to release the stuckness.
Wow, it's fascinating. It's so a lot of it would be based on meridian work as well, because I hear you talking about the different I suppose meridian points as well. Obviously organ and based on Chinese and Japanese medicine. And what kind of got you then, I suppose, to kind of switch over to Reiki and Seiki then? What was the kind of transition point for you?
Yeah.
I know what you were saying in 2011 you kind of decided to come off medication and stuff, but at what point did you kind of go, do you know what, this is kind of really, this is my thing?
Do it's like when you feel yourself, like when you're doing sport, you probably are totally authentically you. It's like it's your authenticity, it's like your expression, it's totally you. Well, for me, Seiki is like that. It's like I would have that feeling of myself totally being alive and authentic to myself, in contact with the body or working on a body, which is a space that's totally different to your personality. So like you have to like just totally empty yourself out. You can't bring your personality or your life into this space. You have to just completely just become very still in yourself and empty out.
Which is a great
And this is something that I can, yeah.
Yeah, no, which is, sorry, I cut across you there, which is a great practice, I suppose, given any kind of situation in life. We have a tendency to kind of carry baggage with us. And when we meet other people, we have a tendency to offload that baggage sometimes, and the wrong people can receive it. And so I'm loving this. This is super.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is actually, everyday wisdom. It's like you have to protect your energy. You have to look at what you're spending your time on, and your energy on, and like where you're placing and putting your energy. And that involves like I mean, from my experience, the most difficult things that you'll experience in this life is relationships that are not positive or life-giving or life-fulfilling. The other thing is like, forbearance against the control of life, so there can be things outside of your control that happen, and you have to respond. And every person that triggers you, I've often heard you talking about that. You're in the ring, there's so many like things happening and it's super fast, and your response requires, you to step back or to look, and observe, what's happening or what's the movement. Well, that's like life with people. You need to step back. You need to observe the movement, of what's happening. And honest to God, I think if you ever have to defend yourself, this is something really important. If you ever have to defend yourself and defend what you do and defend who you are, then you're in a codependent situation, and you need to bring back your energy to yourself. So, and those are the things, you know, that we really need to observe in life, in relationships, and especially holding that energy awareness.
Yeah, so I suppose one of the questions I want to ask you is, obviously in terms of grounding yourself, do you have a routine? Because obviously, you know, sometimes we need to give ourselves a little bit of a check, you know, a little bit of a helmet readjustment and say, oh, hold on, I need to take a step back, as you said there. But like, how would you start your day? How would you start yourself off and say, right, I have a little process I go through and this is how I start my day? Do you have something like that you do every day?
Yeah. Like this morning, like I get up, and immediately when I get up, I'll do my qigong, you know, and my qigong is like, I love qigong because it's so simple, it's so easy, and you just get very still in yourself and very present. And you really need that. You need that as a support, because if you're going out into the world, you need to build and cultivate that space of stillness within yourself, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to be able to respond, you know, from a less reactive space, because people who trigger you are always testing you to come back to your center, you know, and we're not always going to get it right, you know, like you know, you're not like sitting on some Zen mountain, like, you know, every single hour of the day. But, you know, and I certainly haven't been. I've learned a lot through all the mistakes that I've made. So, and I value my mistakes. I value them. They're so important, because I think the most important thing in life is to admit. First of all, just admit if you can't do it alone. Like no man's an island. And then like, you know, just be willing, you know, to actually put in the effort and make the change, you know, the changes that you need to make that make it easier to live with yourself. So kind of cultivating that mindset as well on a daily basis is really important. But the most important thing for me is nature. I would be a total, I ground myself through nature. I am one of those hippy dippy tree hugging girls, you know. And thank God it's science-based now. It's evidence-based that like it's okay to hug trees. But I'm totally like, there's such a high vibration by the sea, the negative ions, going into a forest, you know, just connecting with that energy elevates you. It brings you to a much higher space and place of yourself. You could be feeling terrible, and then you go into a place like that, or a walk along the beach, and you'll just come away feeling awesome. So it's really about making choices that you know benefit you, rather than the self-sabotaging choice. You know, those self-sabotaging choices, you know?
Yeah, that's the voice, I suppose, that goes off in your head, and that self-talk, isn't it, really? And I suppose we have a tendency to kind of block a lot of our stuff with negative attitudes and negative voices that we kind of constantly, I suppose the most the one person you speak to most all day long is probably yourself, you know, and those thoughts that go through your head and the I can't seem to kind of jump out quite a bit. But over the last couple of years, I suppose you've probably had to face a lot of hurdles given your own diagnosis. And whereabouts are you at that at the moment? I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds
that's
like
it.
you're doing absolutely phenomenal, and I wasn't aware of it, so it's news to me. And I've met you on several occasions, and you just ooze
Yeah,
positivity and vibrance. So you certainly don't show it.
thank you. Yeah, no, I went to my neurologist last year, and every year you're supposed to get an MRI, because it's just that way, you know. But he actually can't believe it, because, you know, like it's kind of like he can't believe that I'm sustaining my life and my energy without medication. And he said that it's kind of a rogue situation, because normally people don't really do well without medication. They kind of, you know, they progress, you know.
Yeah.
um like, I mean, it would have been like a very like, I had my most significant relapse in 2009, and I was paralyzed for 3 months. Like, I couldn't speak, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move my limbs. So, I mean, where I'm at, like, you know, I put down to, you know, like energy and body work and you know, a holistic approach. Like, I mean, diet is really important, and I know you're an advocate of diet, and but diet is so important. If you eat for your organs, you know, wherever there's a weakness in the body, it manifests as, you know, an illness. So like, if I have if I have grief, so you asked like about, in the last 4 years, like my dad would have died, in a short space of time there in the last couple of years, but that would impact on you, like these type of things, that you can't really, but you have to process them through you, and you have to make sure you look after yourself, and you've got to make sure that you're self-caring and you're nourishing your body and you're eating for your organs and you're sustaining your emotional journey, with how you're looking after yourself.
Yeah, because I think, and I've spoken to many people over the years, and even with regards to martial arts, so people see it as a very woo-woo, energy, talk energy. But when you start to communicate with them in terms of even just talking around calories, because calorie is an actual energy source. Obviously, kilojoule is measured as it is in kilojoules and so on. And basically people start to kind of go, oh, well, actually, you know what, you're right. If I don't have certain food, then I can't function. My energy levels are low. And I said, but everything has an energy, everything has a source. And I think when people start to realize and kind of come on track, I think what I'm trying to say really is that in this life, we're very, very fast paced. Everything is dynamic. It's moving so quickly. And it's almost like you're doing a quick risk assessment every time you meet someone or you go somewhere or do something. And we don't get the opportunity to actually kind of pull it back to ourselves. And for you to work on yourself then, SaraLee, to try and do stuff for yourself, do you feel that you have little things that you have that indicate that, oh, I'm going a little bit off track here? Do you find that you have some of those things?
Yeah, like body awareness is really important, like knowing your cycles, knowing your energies, especially for women, like the cycle of menstruation, the cycle of like even going through the perimenopause for men, like, your fatigue levels, all of these cycles and body awareness are really key. So you just got to tune into your body. So for example, knowing your kind of less energetic kind of hours in the day. So for example, like at the nighttime, like I could easily be more triggered because I'm really tired, so it's like looking at how you can support that and put a plan in place that, like, supports your cycles and your body awareness. So if you're like overdoing it, and if you're like, kind of investing too much, like the biggest part that I learned in relation to energy was exchange. So if you're giving so much of your energy but you're getting nothing back that's equal or reciprocated, then you're wasting your energy. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, and you're going to deplete your reserves. So you really need to kind of look at, like, how you're balancing, and where you're putting your energy. So, and knowing your body's cycles, so like, I mean, when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're low on sugar, as you said, like, people see, and that's one thing that's really kind of, I suppose, one thing that is like regarding energy and body work is that it's seen as something, as you said, kind of woo-woo, so it's difficult to kind of differentiate that this is actually a very real thing. It's not something kind of, it's not seeking something outside yourself. It's not looking for comfort in some kind of unknown God or whatever. It's actually just taking a practical approach to your body, and really looking at, like, how you can look at your energy. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying that God is very important, but I'm just saying that, your energy awareness is different to that idea that people have of what's comforting to them. Do you know what I'm trying to say in that?
Absolutely, no, absolutely, yeah, I agree 100%. And I think like people in the sporting industry as well are quite aware of the, even from rest and recovery point of view, it's an energy level that you don't have those energies to sustain on a constant pace. It's not going to work if you're going to constantly burn out your resources, and that's a physicality. But and I suppose one of the questions I want to ask you was around kind of that whole mental space, that because obviously we have a mental, emotional, and physical kind of energies as well. But from a mental point of view, obviously we have to fight with a lot of stuff throughout the day and throughout the years. And as you said, the passing of your father, which I'm sorry to hear, but these are things that, how do you manage that then? How do you find that you're able to cope with that? Have you something in place that you work with?
Well, in truth, right, when these things happen, a lot of us don't know how to respond. And in truth, when my dad died, I didn't know how to cope. I didn't have a clue how to cope with that. So we learn through experience. We learn through, okay, it's like what I said, you have to admit, okay, and you have to just say to yourself, I actually can't help myself, because the whole energy of fear is I can't ask for help. I can't let go here. I can't like let my guard down. I can't open up. I can't ask for help. I can't be willing to, just admit that I'm crumbling or falling apart and that I need help. So it's like, if you are in that place, one of the most important things is you have to become accountable with yourself. You have to say, I'm not okay with myself right now. I need help. I need to read that book. I need to go get a counselor. I need to do the course online. I need to take up, a group activity that gets me out into the world, and into contact with people again, so that I'm not living in a, reclusivity. So it's about getting real with yourself. I mean, nobody else is living your life except you. You have to take kind of responsibility for your own life. And a lot of the time, like in the work that I do in the spiritual world, a lot of it's based on ideas of that it spiritually bypasses the hard work. It's like you kind of have to be at a certain place, or you have to attain a certain way of being, or you have to be you don't. You just have to actually be okay with yourself. You just have to come to that place where you go, okay, well, life's not perfect, but I'm going to be okay with myself. And you just kind of let go of the perfectionism, trying to be this or trying to be that. And the more you do that, the more you kind of just let go and relax into yourself, then you kind of actually become more real, more authentic.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all about that, being vulnerable and letting yourself, be exposed a little, because I think people have a tendency to kind of hide away. And I know you spoke about it a while ago about being authentic to oneself. I think that's so important. And it was one thing that I suppose I was guilty of over the years, and eventually started to realize, you got to let go of this. You gotta be who you are and who you want to be, because I think it holds you back. And I do think as well, you're right, there's a certain level of burnout, and it comes very quickly, and it's constant give, and nothing being reciprocated. But like the Seiki then and the Reiki, how do you continue then to kind of grow in that and learn? How do you find that, you continue to improve that,
Yeah.
Is there something you attend, or is it just through general practice, or what is it you find?
Okay. Well, the first thing is, right, okay, so there's no such thing as channeling and anything, right? Like the way, like some energy work is like you're channeling energies, or the energies coming through you, or no, there's nothing like that in Seiki. Seiki works with two very basic things. It works with the breath, where your body is breathing to. So like our defenses, so the Japanese keep it very simple. Our body breathes to 3 points. Those 3 points are reflective of our mental processing. So it could be like an emotional problem, it could be a mental problem, or it could be like that you are actually fully breathing deeply down into your belly and you're on your path. You're in that space, you're very authentic to yourself. So Seiki works with that, but Seiki also works with spontaneous movement. So it's called Katsugen. So the body has a biology that's very intelligent. It's like nature has this same intelligence. Nature will purify itself, it will purge itself, it will get rid of the sickness, and it will eliminate, from itself what is not healthy. So Seiki works with the same principle, that our body in a very relaxed state and making contact with certain points on the body puts the body into spontaneous movement, Katsugen, which really releases the autoimmune system to clear out any kind of holding So our emotions are like the condensed energy in our body. So they're not good for our organs. They're not good for, like, thinking is not good for us unless it's like positive. And I suppose the Japanese scientist, who did his research on emotions and water, Automoto, I think it was his name, but he showed scientifically that if we imprint our emotions onto water, that positive emotions are very healthy for the water and the water of our body, but negative emotions, deplete us, and they don't work for us. So it's really about being mindful as well, of what you're thinking, and what you want to just release from the body. So Seiki works with different points, which the Chinese call meridians, but the Japanese don't call them meridians. So yeah, that's basically it. Katsugen, spontaneous body movement.
Yeah, it's fascinating. My own father did the Reiki as well, and I found it fascinating. And he got really big. He got really big into it, and went off to do some as a Reiki master and all sorts of things. So it's always been a fascinating subject for me. And I suppose being in the martial arts world, obviously it's the kind of different level then you go from the physical. But yeah, absolutely fascinating. But I suppose aside from all that, then what do you do to kind of just have some?
There's an amazing guy in the martial arts world called Ralston. And he was like, a martial arts expert, but he actually created a Qigong movement that was just very powerful. And he's written loads of books about the unknown. So how martial arts kind of works with the unknown parts of ourselves, and our body, and how we move our body. So Seiki is quite similar to martial arts in that way.
Practice. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, no, I suppose where I was leading to was, what do you do outside of all of this? I mean, I do it myself. I'll binge on a Netflix box set or something like that, or just sit down and just have brain numbing, nothing to do with anything else in the world, and almost like take me out of it. A day or whatever it is. I might have a sofa Sunday or do something, because my life obviously is all physical activity and exercise and nutrition. And sometimes I go, you know what? Let's do something just completely outside of that, so I don't have to be thinking about anything else. Because the minute I start doing something physical, I start focusing in on, right, if I move faster, I'm going to increase the heart rate, I'm going to sweat more, I'm going to burn more calories, blah, 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 the usual stuff. But so I find if I do something that's completely different, I can actually get a lot of enjoyment from it, and a massive increase of almost dopamine and serotonin, and everything's released. It's incredible. But for yourself, do you do anything like that, or something completely outside of SaraLee's normal day?
Yeah. Well, I suppose, like, I love doing, going into nature, going for walks and all of that, but that's part of me anyway. But I'm a real movie buff. I love movies. I love watching a good movie, a good psychological movie. I think the last movie that I watched was Shutter Island, and that was Rio. I just love movies, and I watched The Reverend as well, and I just love a good movie and getting lost in a good movie and a good story. I also love people, as in I find people fascinating, just people's stories, just everyday interactions, that, like, reality is just way more fascinating than anything you could ever imagine. Like, some of the stories you hear, like,
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah.
Behind everybody, like, I love, like, the ordinary, because behind anybody is a great story. There's a great, scratch the surface on any human being, and there's a great life there. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, and
Fascinating.
I think that's fascinating, actually, you brought that up, because I suppose when we're, as you said, we can be quite reactive, and sometimes people's story or their background is something that's affecting them, that you're not aware of, and you just treat them the same as everybody else. But everyone has a complete world of their own, a complete different story, a complete different background. And sometimes you just need to take a step back and kind of almost feel what's happening rather than just being reactive, be more rather responsive, I suppose. Can I ask you just throughout the whole COVID situation and things like that and lockdown, how did you find business? How did you find things were for you?
Yeah, well, Seiki is very contact, yeah. So you need to be present with the body, you know, it's you just need to see what the body's doing, you know, so it's a real, like, you know, in the moment working on the bodies,
Yeah.
you know, scenario. So I did set up stuff online. I set up, like, because I would have, I suppose, many strings to my bow. Like, I would have done a course in numerology and, you know, energy awareness. So I did set up a kind of a group online doing energetic awareness, daily updates, but also doing readings, you know, energy guidance and readings. And that worked actually really well. I did get clients in, you know, booking in for readings because they were looking for energetic guidance during, I suppose, this uncertain time. They were looking for, like, you know, clarity around, you know, what direction to take, or, you know, where they were going, and, you know, kind of their life purpose. So, you know, that did actually work pretty well for me. So I enjoy doing that. And we've also, like, COVID didn't stop us. We've set up, like, an event there in August on the 22nd, and we're fully booked. So it's like, you know, people are actually looking for this. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have, like, you know, kind of energy awareness and mind awareness on the day. And then afterwards we're doing a motivational cold therapy swim in the Shannon. So so it's just kind of yeah. So it's just really about, it's just about, you know, staying cool, you know, not letting the things get you down, and just keep going. Perseverance. There's amazing stuff to be found in perseverance and just doing it. You know, it's like and that's what I really get off you. You just do it, you know, and that's what I love. It really comes across in your work, in your energy. Just do it. Do you know, it's great. I love it.
Done. Don't give your brain an excuse. They give you an excuse. And that's what happens. You know, we always find a way to justify not to do it. We don't, it's so much easier to say, I can't, or I won't, or I'll put it off till next week. But it's so much harder to say, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah. You got to face that fear, you know, you got to face the fear.
Yeah, 100%. Step outside that comfort zone a little bit. But if someone wanted to kind of do what you're doing, then how would they go about getting into all of this? It's just absolutely fascinating world.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you'd have to love it. You know, it has to be part of you. You have to, like, you know, kind of you have to love working with, being present with yourself, and, you know, occupying that space of yourself. And it's not a mind thing, it's not mind work. So you need to kind of differentiate. Do I like to help people? How do I like, well, the first core value is how do I wish to help and serve? That's the core value. And then if you have that, then you can kind of choose which modality you feel, you know, or which modality you resonate towards. Personally, for me, the Eastern principles and philosophies I resonate towards. I just like their way. I find it very simple, very natural. It's not too it's not too out there. It's kind of more real to me. You know, it makes sense. So if anybody wants to do it, you know, if anyone wants to learn Seiki, Seiki is, you know, a very easy, simple modality, but in that it's very powerful. I offer workshops, I facilitate them. I'm actually going to Paris now. There's not a lot of people doing Seiki in Ireland. There's only 2 of us. And it's mainly in Europe. So I'll be going to Paris now in September. Fingers crossed now, green lights go for Paris with COVID. But I mean, I'm sending out the good vibes, you know, but the main cohort of the Seiki community is in Europe, in Germany and in France. And we basically have gatherings every year, and this year it's in Paris. So I'm looking forward to that. So if people want to get in touch with me, if they want to know more about Seiki, if they want to know more about, activating their own life force or energy so that they can become, I suppose Seiki is like the red carpet to yourself. You're just learning about yourself, so if that interests you and if that gets you activated, they can contact me and I can point them in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, if I was to ask you who's the biggest influence in your life, would you be able to identify it? You probably have a lot of people by the sounds of it, but if there's anyone in particular.
When I saw that question, I was like, oh my God, how do you answer that? How do you answer that question? Because there's so many, like, I could think of my grandfather, I could think of my dad, I could think of like so many, people who have influenced me in a beautiful way. I think that everybody needs one loving person to love the bones of them as a child. And I think that is the experience that influences you most in life, because that love is going to hold you through. So I would have to say my grandmother, because she loved the bones of me. And, like that'll carry you through, and it'll give you something deeper inside, a deeper value that you'll hold, for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Come here. I just want to, just so that people can get in contact with you again. Where exactly have you a website that people can contact you at, email, so on, Facebook, Instagrams? Lay it on the line. Because I have a feeling you're going to be busy.
my website is under construction, we'll say. It was www.soulways.ie, but I have to kind of revamp it, so it's not up and running. But you can contact me on Facebook, SaraLee Healing, or Seiki Soho International from Ireland to Japan. I'm also on Instagram, SaraLee Cassidy. So really, like, I'm just me, and just being me, I have clients that come to me when they need to come, and I'm doing what I love, so yeah, I don't really need to kind of push myself too much. It's just I'm in the flow of it, so.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. But listen, it's been amazing having you on, and I know everyone's going to enjoy this one, and I have a feeling you're going to be very busy. So listen, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, SaraLee.
Thanks, Jason. You're gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.